Welcome, Amy. Vítajte aj poslucháči a diváci. Budeme tu mať ďalšieho a vlastne posledného hostia z týmu Kompas Staff, ktorý je full-time s nami. A keďže Amy je z Ameriky, tak sa budeme rozprávať po anglicky. Amy, so I hope that you have a nice evening, even though that you are still waiting on your president.
Yes,
because nobody knows how it will go, and I don't want to ask like if you're like what side you are at. This is not politician
thank you
thing, but I have some rather that choosing questions just for the starting. So would you prefer coffee or tea?
I actually like both, and I actually drink both in the morning. Is that terrible? I don't know, but I start with tea. I have my matcha tea first when I wake up, and then about 10 o'clock I start my coffee, and I have a couple cups of coffee too during the day.
How many cups do you drink per day?
Cups of coffee? Only 2. Okay. And then I actually drink at least 2 cups of tea too a day.
That's always fair enough.
End my day with chamomile tea. So
nice. Would you like, do you like more morning or evening?
I am definitely, what do you think? What do you think I am?
I would say morning person.
I'm a morning person. I love mornings. I can conquer the world in the morning. And by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I am dead. I'm dead. I can't do anything else.
So when do you usually start working?
Oh man, well, it depends on when I get up in the morning, but like if I'm up like 5 or 6 in the morning and have my quiet time with the Lord and exercise, usually I can start moving and grooving like 8 or sooner. It just depends. It depends. Nice. But I write emails really early. Some people look to see what time I've sent an email or a text and they're shocked. And I'm like, I'm so sorry, but my mind already starts moving. So.
That's great. And I know that you're a great musician. So would you pick Philharmonic or jazz?
Both. I would say both Mark and I, my husband Mark and I, are very rounded musicians. We both have our degrees. We both studied music and classical music, but we have also done rock and jazz. And so our tastes veer definitely in all directions, except for, I have to say, country music. I'm not that big of a country music fan. And I'm okay if it's pop country or country pop, whatever that's called, but otherwise, yeah.
And that brings me to a different question, because like you're in Slovakia for 10 years?
8.5.
Okay. I bet that you went for some concerts in Slovakia. So did you ever go to Philharmonic or like literally like Slovak concerts, but I do not mean the Slovak folk.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like Slovak bands and singers. Yeah. Like what do you think about music in Slovakia?
That has been one of our greatest, awesomest surprises when we got here. And since being here now this long, we find Slovaks are incredible musicians. We had no idea it was in the DNA like it is, like seriously. And so we've experienced a lot of different kinds of music, and I'm sure our questions will get into that a little bit of why we came, because music is a big reason why we came. But we were going to concerts in Vienna, and then ended up getting some tickets to the Philharmonic here in Bratislava, where we live. And so we went and we were blown away. And we were like, why are we going to Vienna when we can get just as incredible music here? And we met some people, some Austrians, who come to Bratislava for concerts instead of going in Vienna. They're from Vienna. And we were like, okay, that says a lot. So we have been very, very pleased with the musical culture here.
That's great. And my last picking question would be, would you pick full house of people, or would you rather be or have the day by yourself?
Can I say both to that too? Yeah, it's funny because I'm an extrovert who needs my introvert time to refuel. And so like I don't think I get energy with people as much as I get refueled and energy when I'm by myself. And so, but I love being with people too. Mm-hmm. So I would say both. I do have to say, like, I love, like, we have 4 kids who are all grown now. And we were together a lot as a family. And I loved our house being filled with laughter and filled with noise and whatever. And then all of a sudden our nest went empty. And it's just so quiet. And it's just like, whoa, I miss the noise. But then when we have a lot of people here, which we do often, I find, especially if they're living with us, I find I have to pull away and just be by myself for a little while. I have a chair in our bedroom that's like my safe, not my safe place, but my quiet place that I go to just for an hour or two, just to refuel, and then I'm good to go again. So
that's great. Last time we had your husband here as a guest, and he shared a lot about like the story how you came in Slovakia and how did you meet and what are your plans in ministries. So I will not touch everything what he was saying. Just to wrap up, like you came here to serve through Fusion, and it's a music ministry. And after a couple of years, you started also different projects like Bratislava Spieva Gospel, and you moved into like some other ministry fields, and we will touch it later. But before that, I would like to know a little bit about your childhood. Like, where did you grow up, and how was your like how are your like what are your memories from the childhood, and what did you learn in your family? Like, what is something that shaped you the most and it's still with you now?
Mm-hmm. Well, I am the oldest of 4 kids, and I was raised on a farm, actually in the middle of America. So we call that flyover country. So it's the places where not a lot of tourists go, but where what we would say is the heartland. So my dad raised corn and soybeans, and so as a child, I learned what it meant to work hard because we really did help on the farm, especially in the summertime, but also learned how to play hard. And so had just freedom to do whatever we wanted. And actually, this is terrible, but I started driving when I was like 8. And because we lived on a farm and we had tons of property, Dad showed me how to drive. And so, there was just all these cool things. And I think we learned how to, imagine and just be super creative. I always longed to be where the town kids were, the kids that were in the town. But then as I look back now, I'm really thankful because it forced us to be more creative, I think, in how we played, but also we had more freedom. We just had a lot more freedom. Something interesting about my family. So I mentioned that I'm the oldest of 4. I have a biological sister who's 2.5 years younger than me. But then when I was 13, my parents decided to adopt a boy from Guatemala. How do you say Guatemala?
Guatemala.
Okay, Guatemala. And that totally rocked my world. I was 13. My sister and I were really good kids. And then all of a sudden, here was this little boy.
How old he was in the time?
He was 7. So he wasn't little. But he came obviously not speaking English. He only spoke Spanish, and we did not speak Spanish yet. And so it was just it just totally changed our world as a family. And then when I was 16, we adopted another boy from Guatemala. And he was also 7 when he came. And we like to call them our little Spanish tornadoes. They were just crazy, crazy little boys, but brave little boys. And so that is something really interesting about my family, and that kind of changed the dynamic of our family once the boys arrived. And then you asked what shaped me. I was thinking about that question because some of the questions you sent to me ahead of time. So I think the biggest thing that shaped me was growing up in a home where Christ was the center. In fact, I know that was what is the greatest thing that shaped me. There was not a time that that Christ was not present, in my memory bank. Both my parents were Christians, and our family prayed together. They would talk about what God was teaching them. We would do family devotions. Like, I remember as a little girl, my dad, doing a short little reading in the mornings before we would go to school, like even when I was 6 and 7, and talking about the Bible. But then also another thing that shaped me was the importance of church, and just how my parents served the church and served the community. Also, we would help at elder houses. We would go and do Sunday morning services as a family. And as a little girl, that impacted me so much, because here we were serving together, like as a family, where dad would do the message, mom would do the piano playing, my sister and I would do the singing and we'd sometimes even do other little talents. And then we'd go and visit with all the residents of the elder house. And that really shaped me, because I think even in later years, our family has just always had that part of us where we serve together, and fall in love with that part of it. There's just something so special about that. And then the other thing I was thinking about with that question was, I grew up in a church that in American standards would be considered a small church, but it's like 300, and still is about 300 people. But I so appreciated that body of Christ, because they allowed me to start using my musical skills when I was a kid still. Like, I was playing piano for Sunday morning services, and they were entrusting me with more and more, giving me opportunity. Even if I failed, they were giving me opportunity. And I also, it gave me time spent with lots of different age groups in the church, so that I wasn't just spending time just with my generation, which I was. I was hanging out with a lot of my friends who were my age from the church, but I was also hanging out with the adults. And so realizing how beautiful the body of Christ is in all the generations, and how children need to be around adults and vice versa. We need each other. And so that really, really impacted me.
And that brings me to another question, like, because you grew up in a Christian family, when was the time that you would consider yourself that I started my relationship with Christ? I know that sometimes it's hard to see when it started, but did you give your life to him when you were like little child, or it happened when you were teenager or adult? Like, when was that point or the season when it became your own faith?
Well, I think so. My mom has a memory, and I have a memory of when I prayed to receive Jesus in my heart. And I was very young. I was about 4, and that's actually one of my very first memories. I have a few other first memories, but that is one of the first distinct memories I have. But I think I asked my mom if I could do that, because I had been at church, and they were talking about heaven and hell, And I was memorizing John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believeth in him shouldn't perish, so wouldn't go to hell, but have everlasting life, would be in heaven. And I was like, well, I want to be in heaven. So of course I'm going to ask Jesus to be in my heart and be in my life. And so I did it at that point. But I would say when I was around 13, I knew that I had not made him Lord. I had not given him all, surrendered everything to him. And I knew at that point I needed to do that. Otherwise I was living, who was I living for? What was I living for? And so at about 13, I rededicated my life, I would say, and really made him Lord. I also ended up having believer's baptism, we would call it, where I ended up getting publicly baptized to proclaim my faith in Christ. And that was just also a real turning point for me, because then when I was about 17, 18, I was just about ready to graduate from high school and didn't know what I wanted to do. I couldn't figure out, you're supposed to know what direction you're going to go so that you can choose your schools, choose what you're going to study. And I just didn't know, but I knew that God wanted me to give my life to him as a sacrifice of praise and an offering. And I didn't know what direction that would take me. I had no idea, but I knew that I was to surrender my life in service to him. Now, would that be full-time? Would that be part-time? What would that, what country would that be in? Who would that be with? And all of that. So I actually, when I was right before I left for university, I did that. And I would say that too. So I have kind of three pivotal points where I feel like God marked these and it was just that next surrender to him and that next step to being his. So
and we're thankful that you made that last decision, because it brought you at the end here.
Eventually.
Maybe without it, I don't know if you would find the courage to change the whole life and move your whole family and kids and start new chapter here in Slovakia. So would you like to share a little bit more about your ministry, what you are part of, what is your specific role?
Sure, I would love to. So as you mentioned, and I think I mentioned too, we came to help with Fusion, which is using music as a tool to reach unchurched kids with the gospel. And it was a natural fit for us. And as maybe Mark had shared, I don't even know, because I haven't listened to his interview. That's terrible, but I haven't yet. But we were serving in the US for 22 years. Mark was a pastor of worship ministries, and I was with him in that. And I actually was on staff at the church, and I was a professional pianist also during that time. So working at universities and teaching music also and all of that. So, but I would say that God brought us here unexpectedly, and Mark maybe shared that story. But Fusion ended up being the natural fit for us to enter ministry here, being that we're musicians. And so I did that for 7 years. And while doing that, we as a couple and as a family would host our Fusion interns. So we have summer interns and also interns that come at times to serve at different times of the year too. And through that, and we were doing this the whole time too. So 7 years worth of that too, and hosting. Actually, just counted the other day, we've had 19 interns for Fusion in the last 8.5 years of Fusion, which is really cool to look back. And all of those interns stayed in our home at various points of their experiences for long time or shorter times. It depended. But really discovered, and I knew this about me, but I think this really showed me that I just really love to care for interns and have a passion for seeing them grow in their walk with Christ, and then seeing him work in and through them. And so over the course of a few months, our camps team here with Compass was kind of restructuring, and Josh Howard was moving into a new position. And after praying about it and such, decided that being the intern coordinator for me would be a really natural fit for now, for this season. I don't know how long God wants me to be in this position, but I really count it as a privilege. So as of a little more than a year ago, I ended up taking on the whole intern coordinator role. So I'm no longer doing just Fusion interns, but I'm just doing all of our Compass interns. And interestingly, COVID hit. And so all of the interns, but what that has had is recruitment. So involved with recruiting and gathering as many interns as we can to help us with our different ministries for the summer, and then a few for throughout the year, and then caring for them while they're here. So discipling them too, so that we aren't just looking at them as workers and laborers for us, but that we are utmost wanting to see them grow in their walk with Christ, deepen their roots in Christ while they are serving. So we've had interns coming from the US for many years. We've had interns coming from UK as of recently, over the past couple of years. We've had interns coming from other European countries. And then, of course, we have Slovaks. So we've got 4 different kind of areas that we are seeking interns from. So that's my new role as of about a year ago. COVID hit. And we don't know what that's going to look like for next summer, but the prayer is, if I can do a little plug here, is that we are seeking Slovak interns. We have wanted to develop this part of the internship program more anyway. This was even before COVID hit, where our desire is to equip the next generation of Slovaks to do the work of ministry and help them become more equipped in leadership and skills. And so this COVID is actually even given that more of a thrust to where we are seeking those that would like to serve Christ in this way for this coming summer. Because we don't know how many workers from other countries we're going to be able to have, but we do know we can have Slovaks in Slovakia.
And maybe next stream will be very helpful in this, because we are going to interview Slovak interns like those we have now.
Perfect.
And maybe that will be helpful for some other students to decide and see how the internship can look. I know that it's not only for summer, but you are in touch with the interns during the whole year, like before, like through the application process, and then while they are in Slovakia, and sometimes you stay in touch even after. And I know that you are great in taking care for people, even if it's long distance, that they're in States, and you know how to keep up with Instagram, and you know.
I'm working on it. I'm not great at it, but I'm working on it.
But as like, because I had the chance to see you in some situations when I didn't know, I had no idea what our interns are going through, and you knew like who has the new haircut and who has your new boyfriend and what's happening, because you were on Instagram, and that's great. So my question is like, how do you do it? Because I can imagine that it can be hard to take care of, I don't know, like 10 young people in the same time from different countries, from totally different backgrounds, different life stages, and you're able to care for them. Like, how do you do it? Like, do you have any advice how to be purposeful in this, or maybe some hacks, like how to do it?
How to do it? Well, I think for me, one of the greatest things is that people feel seen and heard. Like, I think that is what Jesus did and what we are to be about. And we have to work hard at that, because, and I think for me, with interns especially, we're talking, they're the same age as my kids, basically. I have kids between the ages of 21 to 29, 4 kids. And most of our interns fit in that same age spectrum. And I think trying to understand their generation is really important. And this goes along with just meeting with students too, who are even younger in ministry here, like with Fusion and other things that we've worked with students, but really seeking to ask good questions, I think, and then listen for understanding is so much a part of making people feel cared for, feel heard. And it's funny because like I'm actually sitting in our what we would call a foyer. I don't know. It's right by our front door. It's the room that everybody puts their shoes in and takes their coats off. Yeah, okay. And last year we had 6 interns living with us, and I'll never forget it. I was working in the kitchen. They had all been out doing something, and I heard the front door open, and I heard them all say, "Mom, we're home." And I was like, "Oh, I love that sound." But that this is a place like where they feel loved and cared for, seen and heard. And so how to continue that when you're not physically together. And yeah, so much of who I'm meeting with now, or we're all meeting with now, is on Zoom or texting or through Instagram. I'm seeing things or whatever. But I think, how can we make that happen even when we're physically not present together? And it takes even more intentionality, where you have to carve out the time. You have to make it happen. And yet, you know how it is when you think about somebody and you want to write them or you want to let them know you thought about them, but you just put it off and off and off. And then it's like it never happens, kind of thing. And I think for me, more and more, I will even put it in my calendar to, at this time of day, write this person and let her know I'm thinking of her. Like one girl right now who was with us actually last summer from America. She's American. Her mom is going through cancer, or I don't know if it's cancer, but it's something quite serious physically. And just wanted to know that once we found that out, that we are praying, that we're walking with her in this, and helping everybody know that even though we're not with you, we are linking arms with you in whatever way we can. And so that's been, it's been something that's had to be worked harder. But like even on Instagram, if I see somebody I know, that we know pretty good now, pretty intimately, but we're no longer together, it's like I'll pop a little comment, and it's just like so fun. Or they'll pop a little comment on one of ours, and it's just so special to be able to still try and at least stay in touch a little bit. So.
And I don't know if you write notes about like what you just talked with people, but I can prove that you can remember what I told you 6 months ago, and you can still ask about it. That's, I don't know if it's like super skill or what, but
I'm afraid I'm getting worse as I'm getting older. It's like my memory's going. But I think God does bring things to our minds. I really do. He does. We know that. And stuff that we had no idea was there, he'll bring to the forefront, forward. And when he does that, that's when we need to really be active. And like I had 2 friends I messaged this week because like I haven't had any communication with them for about 3 months. And I was just like, okay, let's do this. They're both right here right now. And so making that happen.
That's
right
great.
away.
So this was your ministry life, but I know that there is a big topic in your life, and it's marriage and family. That's a big value, and you have beautiful family, and it seems that you have also beautiful marriage, but that's what you and Mark know. And Mark shared the story how you met in the last stream. So for those who are watching this and you want to know more details, you should watch his, maybe it's
I
just
should watch
his.
it also, so I know what he said.
Yeah. I was just going to say, like, maybe there will be two different stories and we should do this experiment. But as he was talking, he said that you were actually friends for a longer time before you started dating, and that you were friends, and in that time you had different boyfriend, and then you broke up and you started dating him. And that's something very interesting because it's hard to get out of the friend zone for many boys. So what happened? Like, did you change the view? Like, did you start seeing Mark not only as a friend, but as potential husband and father of your children? Or like what did happen? Or do you have some advice for girls who are maybe surrounded, or maybe they have good friends who are boys, but they always say, like, I cannot imagine dating that guy, and maybe he would be great partner and husband.
Yeah. Well, first I want to say Mark was actually the first dating relationship I was in that we were friends first. So every other dating relationship that I had, which I had a few, we always just jumped right into dating. Like, I really didn't know them and they didn't know me beforehand. And it was partly the small town culture I grew up in. So there was a pressure there, I think, to date. So that had maybe something to do with it. But I feel like, yes, I was dating someone else. So there was and Mark knew that, I think, eventually. What's interesting, and I don't know if he shared this, but I kept journals when I was in my years in college. And my first year in college, I was already dating this other guy. And yet we had these banquets in college. And in my journal, I found, we're talking years later, I found, and it said here, a guy named Mark Chase asked me to the junior senior banquet. Aww. And I, of course, was dating somebody else. So I, of course, told him no, but I didn't even remember that. I didn't remember, because Mark and I weren't we were in the same music group together, which was like 60 people. And so it wasn't like we were, we were both music majors. I was eventually. And so, but we didn't hang out with the same people at all. And so I was just like shocked to see that. And I thought, wow, but he didn't know I was dating anybody at that point, clearly. Otherwise, he probably wouldn't ask me. But so then fast forward, but I remember that next year we had gone to Europe with this 60 group of people, and I had sat down by him and on the bus randomly. I was just sitting by random people and asking questions, because I'm not used to being the one to be asked questions, which you and I talked about. I'm used to being the one to ask questions, but so this is really weird. But anyway, and that was where the friendship began. But I continued dating the other guy next semester into college, second year. And then as Mark and I, we were developing our friendship at the same time. And I just remember observing him, watching him, interacting with other people, especially. Obviously interacting with me, but even more importantly, how he was treating others, and in particular other girls, and just with honor and kindness, and he was just very trustworthy in every way. And so I observed him, and as our friendship was growing and growing, and we were spending more and more time together and in the presence of other people, a lot of that, not alone as much, but together with others, I just obviously were falling in love. I mean, it was clear, and I clearly wasn't in love with the other guy. And that relationship was it was not founded on health. It wasn't healthy in any way. And Mark's and my friendship was just so pure and so healthy. And he had just the qualities that I knew God wanted me to have in a husband. Mm-hmm. I wanted those qualities in a husband, but even more importantly, I knew God wanted those. And I was just so knowing that I ended up breaking up with the guy. And Mark and I started dating within a month because we both knew. I mean, it was just super clear because we'd been friends. And it was just so easy, so natural. And our family, like my grandmother, this is funny, but my grandmother had met Mark before we started dating. She had met him. She had come into Chicago where we were studying and had met him. And she's like, he's the one, Amy. And I was like, how can you say that? Like, I'm dating somebody else, kind of thing. And we're just friends, Grandma. But she's like, no, he's the one. And I was like, oh, okay, whatever, and sure enough, grandmas are always right. Not always, but often right.
Yeah.
But I think the other thing is I knew that Mark could lead me spiritually, that I was not going to have to be the one to lead. Mm-hmm. And I was the one leading the other relationship. And I knew that I needed a man who could lead me. And he walked so close with God. So that was number one, more than any other quality, was that he walked really close with God. So, but as far as advice, gosh, it's really hard to know how do you help potential relationships to move forward when you're a girl and you want the guy to take the lead and should take the lead. I really believe that's how God has designed us as man and woman, and you're so blessed for it. But I think prayer and patience is huge. And like with Mark, he just patiently waited. And he didn't know if he was going to get me or not, as his wife. But he didn't stop being my friend either. Just because I was dating someone else, that didn't. But he didn't have an agenda to try and steal me away. He was very patient, and I'm sure he prayed too. So,
thank you for being honest and very open with this story. And it's very obvious that you are still in love. You have a very loving marriage and you're a very loving couple. So do you have anything that, I don't know, like rules or things that you try to keep in your marriage, like in those years, to really keep your marriage flourishing and good, like to have it vital? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So is there anything you do?
Yeah. Well, you did ask me this. You sent me this question ahead of time, and I was really thankful because I really want to be part of my qualities is that I'm an intentional person. I like to be intentional, at least. I try to be. I'm not perfect with that. But even with this interview, and this question in particular, I was just like, yeah, this is really important. And, I think of marriage as like a house, and how if we don't have a secure and well prepared foundation, it's gonna crumble, it's gonna fall, it's not gonna stay together. You could think of it as having pillars, that are really dug deep into the ground, are rooted, aren't going to move when the wind blows, kind of thing. And I was thinking about, what are those pillars that God has allowed Mark and I to root in to him, because Christ and all that we have in Christ is really where our roots are is in all we have in Christ. But there's 5 actually that I thought about. So bear with me. But the first one is love, which we know comes from 1 Corinthians, where it talks about what love is. And, love is patient and kind. It doesn't envy. It doesn't boast or be proud. Love isn't proud. Isn't proud. It keeps no record of wrongs. Like there's no list of you did this to me, you did this to me, you did this to me. So it doesn't have that list. It doesn't delight in evil, but rejoices with truth. Always protects. Love always protects. And love always trusts. And always hopes and always perseveres. I love that, always, too. It doesn't shift from that. But I think there's a difference between loving and being in love. And I think often, we know that love is, being in love is is feelings based, and our feelings, especially as ladies, we're very up and down. We're very emotional creatures. I mean, our feelings shift and change. And certainly, Mark and I have been married 31 years. We've been together now, 32 and a half years, as far as when we started dating. And I mean, feelings change, they shift, they are up and down. But love goes beyond feeling, like love, real love. It's deep unity. And that's something that we've had to work really hard at, is striving to be in deep unity with each other. It's deliberately strengthened, I think, by habit. And so choosing, I'm going to love you no matter what, no matter how I feel, no matter even what you do or how you are, I'm going to still love you. So that's kind of a habit that we've had to practice. And the other thing I think too is that love, this kind of love is reinforced by God's grace and love for us, because we're experiencing that every day. And so by experiencing that love from him, the Father, towards us, we're able to give that love to one another. So that's the first pillar, like, that I think helps our house stay strong. Another one is trust. I think trust is so important. Remaining faithful to one another, obviously, is crucial, and not second guessing or doubting each other. I need to trust that Mark always has my good in mind, and he needs to trust me with that too. No matter if I don't feel loved or whatever, I have to realize that he's not trying to not love me. I'm trusting that he is trying to love me, even if he failed or didn't do it right or whatever. But I think that's been really important, is trust. Like, I know I can trust him. He is faithful to me. Respect, obviously, which I know a lot of marriage books talk about love and respect, but respect is really, really crucial. And I think for me, learning, like, to be a student of Mark, where I am studying him and I am figuring out when is it and how is it that he feels respected. And I am still a student of him after 31 years of marriage. Let me tell you, I'm learning new stuff all the time. But this in particular is so important, that I learn and know what are the ways that he feels respected as my husband. Understanding is another one, I think, is crucial. Zechariah, I pulled up this passage in Zechariah that says we are to speak the truth to each other and render true and sound judgment. So we have to begin, and this goes back to, again, being students of one another. I think is really important, like asking really good questions and then listening for understanding. It kind of goes back to what I was talking about with the interns too, and how to, or just with anybody, helping them to be seen and heard. But listening is so crucial. But I think often we think, well, understanding means that I agree or yeah, I can't disagree. But no, understanding just means that somebody's been heard, that they've been given voice, and you're all there listening without any other agenda or distraction. And then the last one, of course, as you can guess, I'm sure, is faith. Our faith plays such a vital role in our marriage. Like, I don't know how people do this without their faith in God. It's interesting because, like, I'm 52 and a half. I can look back and just see over and over and over in my life God's faithfulness and his hand. And I've been so convicted recently that I need to be looking back more and more and just, wow, look at what he's done. But also it helps in we're looking up to him. We're not looking even at each other, but we're looking to him. We're looking to him to satisfy. We're looking to him to provide. I'm not putting pressure or looking to Mark to complete me. It's got to be God who completes me. And when God completes me, I'm able to pour out and help and complete Mark. And vice versa. We're a partner. We're partners. We're team in this. And honestly, it is so much work. And we have had times where we have failed big time in these 5 areas, especially. But God has been so gracious. And I would say, we've had kids. We had kids in our house for 28 years, our own children, I should say. And so, there were times that we failed at building our house well. But God has had his hand on us, and we are having an absolute blast right now in marriage more than ever. And I think a lot of couples at this time of life, when their nest becomes empty, it's like nothing's keeping them together anymore. The kids are gone, or whatever kept them together is done. And for us, obviously, God is we're working at keeping God right in the middle of it all. And actually, he is just blessing us more and more in our marriage. We're having so much fun. So
that's great. That is great. We have last 10 minutes. It's unbelievable that it goes so fast. But people asked questions through Instagram, so I don't want to ask you those. So one was, is there any dream that you still have and you hope that one day it will become true?
Oh, I think, I did not prepare an answer for this question, but I think my dreams changed depending on my age and stage in life. And there was a dream, I would say, honestly, way back when I was newly married and had little kids. And I was starting to play more and more professionally piano. And I was doing more and more recordings for people. And I just discovered that I love sight reading music, and it's kind of like feed me new music all the time kind of thing. I hated practicing. I just wanted to play something and be done, and then move on to the next thing. And I had this little bit of like, I would love to be, I would dream of being a studio pianist where I would help artists accompany them or be in the band or whatever, specifically recording in studios. And I was doing a little bit of that in Colorado, but that was a dream that sort of started to fade, obviously, in time, because I believe God gives us dreams. I think he gives us gifts and abilities and passions and dreams that are from him. But I also believe that those can change and shift depending on the season of life we're in, and utmost depending on his call, like what direction he's taking us. And directions shift unexpectedly. And my direction, I would say, shifted greatly. And lots of, because I'm old, so my direction has shifted a lot to where dreams have changed. And I don't know if I would even say that I have unfulfilled dreams as such anymore. I think my prayer is that I'm in the center of his will, and whatever that looks like, whether that is moving our family across the ocean to a country called Slovakia and living in a city, which I'm a country girl, don't forget, and here we are in Bratislava. And even though it's not one of the world's largest cities, it still is a city, and it has a lot of the city things, which I love. And there's also some things that are frustrating, like the traffic. But just how I just want to be in the center of his will, and wherever and whatever, God. And obviously there's prayers, as our family changed too, that I had hopes and prayers for each one of our kids. And now for some of them who are married, and now we have grandchildren also. And I guess if I had a dream, and who knows if this would ever come to pass, is that we would live near one of our kids, because we're in 5 different countries, and between us and our kids and their families. And so it's like, that would be a dream. Like, would God allow that to happen? I don't know. But I think especially as we get older, it would be really great to be able to live near our kids, but also to serve with them. And that is something that we have done for years with our kids before they all left the houses. We were always in ministry together as a family. We've been family on mission, and it would be just super cool to be able to do that together again, or at least with one of them or some of them. So that would be an unfulfilled dream I probably have.
I'm sure it will happen. You have 4 kids, so I'm sure you will find a way, an opportunity.
We will see.
And I wanted to ask one, I think, funny thing. I heard about the car story.
Ilka, you're not supposed to ask her.
Just for people to know that you are actually a very funny person, and to know a little bit more about the United States.
I don't think this is funny. I think this is really sad about me. Okay. I don't even know if I can tell it in the next 7 minutes before we have to sign off. So in September, right before we left to come back to Slovakia, we were in America for 6 months, and we needed to get packed and ready to come back to Slovakia. But I was sick, and I needed to go into the emergency room at the hospital. That's another story for another time. Anyway, so I was up all night, of course, in the emergency room, got back. We were staying with my parents. So it was just Mark and I and my parents, and got back to their home, took a couple hours of sleep, and then got up. And the doctor at the hospital had said, when you get up in the morning, go to the grocery store, go to the Potravini, and you can probably get this certain medicine there. So in America, you can buy medicine at the grocery store. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm up at 7 in the morning and might as well go now. And so I went upstairs where my parents were, and my mom said, well, just take our car to the store. And I was like, okay, thanks. And so I hop in their car, drive to the store, and just jump out of the car, run into the store really fast, check to see if they had the medicine. They didn't. So I ran back, jumped in the car, and thought, well, I think I should check another lekaran, another pharmacy that was connected to the hospital, and see if they're open. So I did. I drove over to this other lekaran, and they weren't open yet. I was like, okay, so I've got one more store I could check. It's a small town. And so I checked this other store. They didn't have the medicine either. So I thought, well, I'll just go back to my parents' house and figure it out later. And so I'm pulling up to my parents and I'm pushing the button that would normally open their garage door to go up. And it's not going up. And I'm like, why is this garage door not going up? I don't understand. And I'm sitting there for the longest time. And so I put the car in park. I get out of the car. I go into the garage. There's a side door. I go into that door, push the button inside the garage to get the door to go up. Goes up, no problem. And I go back out to drive the car into the garage. And my dad had poked his head out of the door in the garage, and he's like, what are you doing driving a Cadillac? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, that's not our car. I had actually taken someone else's car. And I know you're like, how in the world could you have taken somebody else's car? But I did. I took someone else's car at the grocery store. And I've been driving someone else's car around town looking for this medicine. And the thing was, so just as a disclaimer, is my parents had just gotten their car. It literally was brand new. So I had never been in it. I had never driven it before. But what had happened is I had come out of the grocery store, and these new cars have the fob where you just
the button.
Mm-hmm. And I had just left my mom's in there because, okay, here's the thing is in Iowa where no one lives, they just leave those in their car. They don't lock their cars. They're just very trusting people. And
that would never happen in Slovakia.
It would never happen in Slovakia because it would be illegal in Slovakia. America, it's not illegal. But so ended up, I took this, and then here's the thing. It was a white little SUV, same look, but a different car maker or whatever, car model.
So what did you do? Like, did you find the owner or?
So my dad and I were like, panic. I'd been up all night too, so don't forget that. And I start crying and I'm like, Dad, we gotta go really fast to the grocery store. And so he hops in the other side. I'm driving as fast as I could. It literally took me like 1 minute to get to the store because I was driving so fast. And I see this little old lady with policemen standing next to my parents' car. So I'm honking the horn, like, we're coming. And I'm just like, and I park the car and I jump out and I run over to her. And she was just like, oh, honey, I totally knew what happened because our car looks the same. But I walked out of the store and I called my husband because I couldn't find my car. And I was like, where did our car go? And she was just the sweetest thing. And then I was like, oh no, the policeman, and he was standing there laughing. This is, again, middle of nowhere. So they don't have much to do anyway. So they're whatever. So he was just like, this is the best story ever. Like, I've never heard of anybody just accidentally taking someone else's car.
This is great.
So my dad gets out of the car too. And he's like, oh, my daughter, she was up all night in the, he's trying to give excuses. She's a missionary in Slovakia, all these things. I'm like, Dad, don't say any more about me. I don't want anybody to know. But so I have actually stolen a car.
But can you imagine, like, if they would not have the garage button, they would maybe park and find out like next day.
I wouldn't have known. Totally. Yep. If my dad had not looked either outside, I would have put it in the garage and it would have been
everything's fine.
It was actually a really nice car.
This is a great
Okay.
story. Okay, Amy. Our hour is over.
Good job. Yes, hour.
But I want to give you a last chance. Like, if you want to add anything that I didn't ask you, and you want to use this online space.
Yeah, I mean, if there's anybody out there that needs encouragement, write me, get a hold of me. I would love to meet you and welcome you into my life, and so that you are seen and heard, because I want everyone to know that they are seen and heard. So yeah.
And I'm very grateful that you are here in Slovakia with Mark, and I can imagine that it's not fun sometimes to be in different country, but you are really very like warm-hearted and You're great servants, and we love you from our team, and we are very proud of you.
We love being here, and we're so grateful to God for being here. So.
Takže, milí diváci, toto je koniec našej hodinky a Amy teda bola náš posledný kolega, ktorý sa takto pridal, ale na budúce máme posledný live stream a tentokrát s našimi stážistami, teda s niektorými z nich, tak nás určite sledujte a ak máte nejaké otázky, ktoré vás zaujímajú o stáži, tak môžete ich potom položiť aj na Instagrame, keď budeme robiť promo na ten štvrtkový stream. A chceme veľmi pekne poďakovať, že ste nás sledovali a thank you, Amy, for your time and courage to be here with us.
For having me.
Okay. So have a nice evening a majte sa všetci dobre. Čaute.
Ciao.